Welcome to the Scale with Pros podcast with your host, myself, Cody Barton, the number one place to be if you want to build a business beyond yourself. And for all the resources we talk about in the show, make sure to head over to scalewithpros.com. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. So I have a special guest here, Chris Meade, co-founder of CrossNet and founder of Founders Club. And so I actually met Chris at one of the other guests that we had on the show, Brandon Schwalm, his wedding. Huh?
I didn't know he came on. I gotta listen to that episode.
Yeah. So yeah, he came on it's probably like a month or two ago. So Brandon Schwalm, another guest that folks have listened to on the show. I met Chris at his wedding, and was hearing his story of building, inventing and coming up with this concept of CrossNet, and then all of the success that he's built within that company, and then putting together this really cool community around the Founders Club. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got to have Chris on the podcast and come share these lessons and trials and things that he's had to overcome to create all the success that he's had. And so I don't want to steal all of your thunder to share your story, Chris, but would love to have you kind of take us back a little bit. Obviously, where are you from? How did you initially start this business of CrossNet? Where is it kind of today? And what are some of the things that you're working on right now for everyone that's listening in?
No, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it. It was good meeting you at the wedding, and glad to be connected. But yeah, I was 24 years old. I grew up on a farm in Connecticut, super small farm town where movie theater's an hour away, gas station's 30 minutes away, and literally you had to just be resourceful growing up to make fun. You made fun out of anything you could do. And it's kind of in this midlife crisis where I was cold calling. I was working at Uber. I was one of Uber's first ever salespeople. And I just was picking up the phone, cold calling for work every day. And I was just miserable, man. I was 24, cold calling about 50, 60 hours a week. And I'm like, is this literally going to be my life for the rest of my life? Like, this is a terrible outcome. And went back home to Connecticut one night with my brother and my co-founder, who was like a childhood friend. And we're all kind of in the same stage of life. Nobody was really happy. We were promised this great, crazy world after college, and life was going to be amazing, but we were just struggling. And it was paycheck to paycheck, and we didn't really see an end in sight. So we kind of listed out 300-400 different ideas all night long, just drawing up ideas of like how to get rich and change our lives. And four-way volleyball was one of the last things on there. And none of us grew up playing volleyball, but we just all grew up being boys and wanting to play sports outside, right? Like, that's just what we do. And we Googled it, and nobody had ever done it before. Like, there was not a single search on Google. So we went to bed at like 4 a.m, woke up the next day, and pretty much made our prototype come to life. And that was the beginning of it.
That's insane. So was it 3 partners then, or is it or was it 2?
It's three partners. Okay. So myself, my brother, and another. So yeah, including me, it's 3 people.
Okay, that's so cool. So started that, which is just crazy. I mean, it's so cool. I love America, like entrepreneurship and like being able to start something just like out of just an idea and turn it into something. So let's fast forward that. So obviously, so that was the birth of it. Take us through the journey of like, okay, the business started, now where it's at today. And then obviously I'm going to ask you some questions around like some of the things in the journey, but now, fast forward from this idea on a piece of paper at 4 a.m. to now, where's CrossNet today?
Next morning we wake up, we get the blueprint, build a blueprint on a piece of paper, rig 2 volleyball nets up, invite our friends over, and we literally make up the rules, right? It's our proof of concept. We play for 4 hours straight. Everyone feels like they're 12 years old again. And for 4 hours, nobody was complaining about life or their girlfriends or work or money. It was just kids being kids while we were in our mid-20s. So we looked at each other and we did the most logical thing we did. We quit our jobs, liquidated our 401ks, pulled about $11,000 across the 3 of us together in a joint bank account, wired the money to some supplier in China, patiently waited for the inventory to come, and moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in Miami, and took a U-Haul across the country. And bro, we just go to the beach every day. We'd grind. I'd like be harassing you to come play. And by the end of the day, you would have so much fun. You're in Arizona, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I'd convince you to buy for $100. I'd have beer money for the night or a little bit for my rent. And 3 weeks later, I'd start getting sales from a random city in Arizona. And I'm like, yo, I've never been there. How is this happening? And I'm like, oh, it's that dude Cody that I met at the beach. And that would happen every single day. We just meet more and more customers and they take it home and do the work that we were doing in Miami. So flash forward, it's been 7 years now. We're in thousands, probably like 5,000 plus retail stores. I've done over $50 million in sales, bootstrapped the entire thing, had waves of great profitability and waves of terrible learning curves. And we just locked down Target for 2025, which is going to be a massive rollout. And just came off Costco Canada and Australia as well. So business is humming. The product is selling like crazy and doing really well. We're the number 1 ranked Amazon, number 1 volleyball net on Amazon for a made up volleyball game that we created. And also have one of the best pool games in the country. So yeah, business is good and it's been really fun.
Dude, it's so freaking cool. Like, it's just like American dream is alive. And, for those that are listening, and, there are some people that are, just starting that transition to their own business. And I mean, my gosh, like the amount of, friction and, force that you had to go against in like creating a new thing, coming up with something that never existed. There's no technical market that's just like already wanting the thing. You're like creating a thing, creating the market, then selling it, then figuring out how to deal with China and like distribution and all. I mean, oh my gosh, there's so many things along that journey that you had to overcome. So
I like it's important to dig into that too, right, man? Because like hindsight's 2020, but when starting a business again now at 31, I would like to think that I would be more cognizant of the uphill battles that I signed up for, right? Like I'm inventing a category, I'm creating demand. It's a seasonal business. There's no lifetime value because once you buy it, you're done. It's literally everything that you'd ever want to draw up on why would I want to not get into this business is against CrossNet. And still with all of that, we still succeeded in creating like a brand new sport and being one of the top players in our category.
so amazing. So what does the team size look like that's now supporting CrossNet, across, the team that's supporting that business?
Yeah, bro. So right now it's much smaller than it used to. We had at our highest point, we had 25 full-time employees, which was a crazy machine, and was really in our growth phase when we were trying to get from 10 million to like 30 million, and we just overshot, and a lot of learning lessons there that we could talk for hours on. Now the team scaled. It's we have about 7 people running it. I kind of handled the marketing and sales of the business. We're really focused on using freelance contractors right now. I really don't want to get stuck in a relationship where, as a seasonal business, we have full-time headcount on when there's not work to be done. Because the business goes bananas in the summer. And I mean, of course, November, like we're prepping for Black Friday, but September and October are slow. January and February are slow. March is slow. If you have a $75,000 headcount or $100,000 employee, like, and they're not working half the year, that's a terrible situation to be in.
That's it. Yeah, that's tough because it's like you gotta, it's like just being a seasonal business, like you don't have the stability of, keeping people busy during those times. That's super interesting.
Yeah, you can't have A players on your roster for 12 months, but in the months that you are busy, you need the A players. So how do you do that? It's like you create these crafty contracts with them that can flex on and off. And luckily we have good relationships, but it took a long time to find the right people.
Yeah. So walk me through like those first couple hires that you made, any learning lessons that you would, share, and, maybe whether it's around expectations or, how you hired, because a lot of people that are listening, they've only hired a few people and they're just getting their bearings around that and like building a great team. And as it's like you got to have A players to help a business be successful, whether they work for you full time or contractor basis, like you're, in these situations that you're working on. But, what were some of the lessons that you experienced that kind of come to mind that, you'd share with the listeners?
100%, man. And it's funny because I'm doing the same thing now with Founders Club, which we'll get into, but we have 10 full-time employees now in that business and it's ramping up nicely. But there was a long time in the first few months where, not long, it was first few months, but we had C players, we had D players. No knock to any of them if they're listening, but it was very eye-opening where me and my founder were like, yo, we need to cut this shit. We need to hire A players. It might cost a little bit more, but they're going to do the work of 2 or 3 of these D players, and they're going to get us to where we want. So for me with CrossNet, one of our first hires is actually my now wife. What was on the brand and marketing side. I am not a branding guy whatsoever. Like I know it looks good, but I am not one to make things look uniform across. And as we got into retail, and we were talking to people on email and social media and running ads and going on podcasts, like everything was just looking disorganized. So we brought in my wife, who was at the time like our head of marketing, head of brand, to really help with that, which was really crucial. And then the second hire was a head of paid media. And it's a tricky situation because I'm not a media buyer. I've never been a media buyer. And I would look you in your face and say, my biggest mistake as an owner and somebody in the e-commerce world is I never took the time to learn the Facebook ad manager. I am now paying people and then trusting them. Like I know my shit, but I don't know my shit, right? Where I'm not in the platform. So for 7 years, I've fallen victim to a lot of agencies. So if I can give any advice to anybody starting out, it's just, dude, it's roll up your sleeves, do the dirty work, and all the stuff I never would like I should have done, because it would have saved myself a lot of painful conversations and a lot of shitty contracts.
Yeah. So how do you approach that now of like, because there's always like, okay, well, as the business owner, you can't know everything about everything, right? Because otherwise you're so spread and you aren't niche down, to be able to make effective use of all of your time, right? But it's like, how do you, I mean, transparently, that's something that, my company, The Plant Guy, like we went through a couple agencies, and it's like the battle cry of every agency is over promise, under deliver on the back end. But, it's like, they're like, we're the best and this is why. And so, I know that's something we're trying to figure out there. I mean, we've gotten the marketing down for like other service businesses, online, info product and things, but like that, e-com side, I know it's something we're struggling with. So how do you balance that just in general for like some, for me and others listening, of like learning it enough to be, dangerous to understand it without like getting too into the weeds of everything?
Yeah, no, I think it's a very good point. And like as a founder, your goal should be to look for your biggest weaknesses and put the right people in the right spot, right? Like you can't have the ego to want to touch everything like an octopus. The only way the company actually gets to where you want to go is by getting yourself out of all the positions that you suck at. However, you can't do that if the cash isn't there, right? So it's, what is this fine line of where do I need to keep my hands on it? Because we can't justify this $50,000 hire or this $30 an hour contractor. So you need to be at least savvy enough to talk the talk. What I try to do is with the areas that I'm bleeding in, where I know I could improve, but I can't really afford it, is try to work out an hourly contract with somebody, even if it's 5 hours a week, right? Their 5 hours a week is probably better than your 20 hours a week of trying to figure it out and still sucking at it. So it's just putting the right people in the right spots. And when it comes to the ad platform and like actually paying for people to run your ads, I think it really just comes down to like really understanding your economics of the business. A lot of people are running ads. I'd say 9 out of 10 people are running ads on Facebook right now, and they have no idea their real profit margin, right? Like they're not taking into account 30 other miscellaneous expenses, and they're actually probably lighting money on fire or overspending. So you need to have a really tight understanding of this is the actual number that we need to be at on a daily basis for our ROAS. And if you're not tracking to that, then you're just going to be blowing cash regardless.
Totally makes sense. So you bring on head of, paid media, branding, and were there any mistakes that you made around like the hiring process that you'd recommend, like, hey, like this is red flags that now I identify that I just didn't know to identify before, that you'd love to share?
Yeah, I would say specifically around finance. I'm not a
Mm.
finance guy at all. I understand when we're making when we're making money or we're losing money.
There's more
But I
money
am
in the
not one.
account and now there's less. What's going on?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm not the most competent when it comes to working capital and using debt to make the business grow. And essentially, what happened was at one point, we brought on a very expensive financial hire, like $140,000 CFO, and he was an amazing person and really good at his job. He was a great person, but our $10 million e-commerce business didn't need a $140,000 CFO, right? Like at the end of the day, it's a very easy business what we do, Money comes in from Shopify, money comes in from Amazon. We send invoices for retailers, and that's it. It doesn't need to be more complicated. So I think there's just this very, I don't know if it's from the TikTok learnings or the gurus, but business does not need to be, especially an e-commerce business, does not need to be overly complicated. I think we're transforming into a day and time where a lot of these sub $10 million businesses are going to be run by one or two people, and that's it. There's not much more needed.
Yeah. No, it's super interesting. And the financial side, I mean, at that, even at that size, it's like you probably could have just gotten away with like a good like staff accountant or like maybe a controller.
Bro, I have a $20 an hour girl who's still like in college. She's our accountant now, and she crushes it. Like it's all she does. Like it's just a lot of stupid expenses that you make when you're young. That I wish I could go back, but I mean I'm young, so I'm learning from them now with the new business.
Yeah, no, totally. So that's where the business is today. So what's the future plans for CrossNet? Like grow it to $1 gazillion and sell it, or is it what's the future look like? And then I'd love to touch on the Founders Club after.
So the goal has always been with the company is we're past this. We're no longer a fad. It's not a trend. It's not a drop ship product that's going to fade out in a year, right? Like we're in 15,000 gym classes now, 53 countries, over 1 million players. It's a real full-on sport. There's a curriculum for it with kids in class. It's amazing. So my goal is I want my grandchildren to play this game. Like, am I going to be the one that's running the company? Probably not. But whoever does acquire the company one day, best be putting it in the position that it's still in all the retail stores. It becomes a part of American culture. I want it in every beach. I want it in every gym class. I want you to go into your local park and CrossNet set up, but not only is it set up, but you know how it's used. Like you know how to play it. Just the way you look at a basketball hoop. You don't look at a basketball hoop and like, what the hell is that weird thing? It's just, you know what to do. That's the mission. That's what keeps us up at night. And then on the product side, it's just reinventing the backyard space. So we're dropping a bunch of new games. We just put out one called SmashNet, which is doing really well. We have 3 or 4 that we're going to put out next year. And yeah, our goal is to be a modern day Franklin or Wilson, where we're just dropping fun, innovative backyard games and changing the way you play outside.
I love that. This is totally random, but have you seen the documentaries on Franklin and Wilson when they were like from like the early 1900s when they were coming into existence?
No, I got to see that.
So I think it was on Amazon, but there is like, those series of like how, it's like how Disney changed America, or like how these, how this was built, or the founding, business owners. Like I'll find it and send it to you. But I watched those like a few months ago or a couple months ago, and it was so cool just seeing it's like, going through the history of like how Franklin and Wilson, they started those companies and how they evolved into what they became. And so it was super, super cool. So I think you'd really enjoy it. But amazing stuff there. Now, Founders Club. Can you talk a little bit about, first off, like what is it? Why did you create it? And what's kind of the goal for that, the community?
Yeah, man. I mean, kind of like touching back to the OG CrossNet story. When we came up with the idea, I didn't have any entrepreneur friends. I didn't have anybody in e-commerce. I didn't know any rich people, right? I was living on paycheck to paycheck and just kind of struggling. And when I started the company, I had so many questions, right? Like, how should we launch? How should the website look? How do I get into Walmart? How do I get, like, nobody wanted to talk to me. I was just begging people on LinkedIn, right? Like 5 minutes of your time, 5 minutes of your time. And I'm sure you've been in the same stage. And now the shoe's on the other foot where people come to you for advice, which is awesome. But for me, man, growing up in Connecticut, like in the woods, I never kind of lost that mindset. So I was in New York, flash forward 7 years of writing on LinkedIn every single day. I built up this big newsletter. So every week I write a newsletter about the do's, the don'ts, the fuck-ups, the mistakes of CrossNet and just owning a brand. And there's 50,000 people that read it every week, which is amazing.
That's so
cool. I was in New York one night, and you've probably been here before, where you're traveling, you're a little lonely. You're like, oh, why am I in my hotel room? It's only 8 o'clock. Like, I should be out. So I sent an email to everybody on the list being like, yo, who wants to meet up for coffee tomorrow morning? And 53 people wrote back that they're going to show up at this place that I like dropped the address. And I'm like, this place is super small. Like, we can't fit all 53 people there. And I put them all in like a CC, and I'm like, yo, let's meet for dinner here instead. And everybody showed up. And it was just 53 entrepreneurs just like myself. Like they knew me from LinkedIn or CrossNet, and it was sick, bro. Literally like 4 hours of just like a bunch of nerds all hanging out, but having fun, getting drunk, and having some good food. And there's magic there. There's absolute magic there. And I was like, it, let's replicate it. I found a few sponsors, and me and one of my best friends, Aaron, who's now my co-founder, we just hosted hundreds of dinners over the course of the last like 2.5 years, and now it's wound up to become this invite-only entrepreneurship community. So it's literally solving the problems that I was looking for when I was just starting, and matchmaking people with like the people who solve their weaknesses, right? Like I'd be like, yo, Cody, what are 3 things you suck at and you want to get better at this year? And I'll matchmake you with 6 or 7 people, and you guys meet with them on a monthly basis. And then there's a whole local chapter too. So it's been fun.
That's so cool. I love that. So that's, amazing, amazing community, the brand side, when you're talking to, because obviously, you're having these dinners with entrepreneurs, and, it's a lot for a lot of folks, it's like that, milestone of like getting to 1 million a year or more, whether it's like an e-com or online or whatever type of business, it's always that mystical figure that people want to get to. And then they get to it, and then they're like, this isn't really as much money as I thought it was going to be, is what it sounded like, right? I don't know if you had that same experience of feeling that way, but what are some of the things or lessons that you're commonly sharing when you're talking to that entrepreneur that's wanting to get to that first million a year in revenue in their company and this first couple million a year in revenue? What are some of the most common things that you're typically sharing to help them kind of close that gap?
Well, it's kind of the entire notion, right? Like you said, the $1 million isn't that much, because really there's not much left after that $1 million in a normal e-com business like these days, right? So I try to have these founders not only from inception, but also while they're running the business, like really understand what do they need to get out of this business to make them happy on a monthly or annual basis, and is the company even set up for success to do that? Because I mean, dude, we've made tens of millions of dollars a year and pennies in profit, right? And it's like, what the am I doing every day, waking up and running this business to have some cool dashboard that I could feel like I have good clout about, and then made 10 million bucks, but barely put any money in my pocket, right? And that's the worst feeling. And so instead of just going for stats and high level stats so you can speak up and brag about the company, it's really about what's going in your pocket at the end of the day. And there's seasons of life, right? There's seasons where you need to invest in yourself and invest in your business, and you're not going to make a lot of money, but in the future it's there. And then there's times where you just need to get your together and have hard conversations and cut out all the fat. And CrossNet's been there many times, but I think whenever this podcast comes out, will be pretty much towards the end of the year. Check how 2024 ended up. Did you hit your numbers? Are you paying yourself out? Like, what needs to be changed? And the best time to do it is now, and it's not to wait.
I love that. And there's so many things to unpack from what you said. One is like the reverse engineering. It's like I was talking to, and I've now learned this, and it was funny because I was talking to you about this at the wedding of like, I got into, I'm not going to call out the business, but there's a product-based company that, bought into a little over a year ago, and we're, figuring out things there and, helping them grow. And I'm like, man, like, I don't think I want to be involved in a product business again because of the margins. Like, it's like, it's like phantom margins is what it feels like. It's like, yeah, the technical net profit is 15 or 20%. So it's like good, but it's like, well, now you need to buy more inventory. So it's like, yeah, there's profit.
Bro, it's literally a revolving door. You never see the money until the exit, and then the exit never comes. And it's just, yeah, it's so take the money when you can, figure out a way to pay yourself, and optimize for your personal happiness is like what I always suggest.
Dude, I think it's so important, like sharing that message, and it's like building a business. Like I've always been a fan of, it's like build a business that serves the lifestyle that you want to build, not a business that you have to serve. It's like, yes, you have to work hard, you have to learn the skills, you have to build the team, like you have to do the things to grow a company, but building something that actually creates that lifestyle that you're looking for. And my battle cry is like, I only want to build, companies that are high profit and or can be built into self-managing companies with great teams, great systems, great operations that can, run those so that I'm not a slave to the business, and that I could have great team members that I could pay great money to have the A talent, but also be able to take home great money out of the business. And I'm like, my new thing is, I'm like, man, like life's too short to build a business that has 10% margin or 15%. I'm like, I want 20, 25, 30 plus percent, or I'm like, I don't really want to be involved.
Yeah, no, it's so true, dude. I know so many people that make more money making $1 million a year than other people who make $30 million a year. Right? It's all about the business, and it's also about knowing the guardrails before you even start the business. Right? Some of these things are doomed before they start, where you're operating on 10% margin, you have one or two months, your entire year is up. You're digging out of a hole. Right? It's like you need to start, and it starts with gross margins. It starts with pricing your product the right way, right? There's been times where we launch a product and it's like, dude, why did we even do that? Like, we need to raise the price by $50. Like, we can't make a profit on this. So, yeah, setting up those guardrails before is just like so important. And it really just comes down to math. And I just see so many people scared of math, and I'm guilty of it sometimes too. But getting in the Excel sheet, doing the dirty work, the ugly stuff, is the stuff that actually matters, because all this other fluff and imagination that you have in your head doesn't actually pay the bills.
Totally. And I, for those that are building the type of business, it's like, so it's reverse engineering, like one, the lifestyle you want, and then the type of, income that you need to be able to support that lifestyle. And then looking at what the company needs to be, where my main focus now over the, next couple of years is, growing my Scale with Pros, like membership community, and consulting with companies on their ops, people, finance side of their businesses. And I'm like, I know what the team needs to look like. I got my 3 years of, like, in 3 years I know how many retainer clients, how many membership community clients, how many high ticket people that we're bringing in to serve. And I know what the team size, like I know how many team members we need to have to do all of that. And it's doing that work of, like, seeing, like, okay, is this going to build the type of business that I want, so that it can serve, creating the profitability that I want, and being able to have all of the A players in place to be able to run most of the business as well, while they're able to live a great life because we're able to pay them well. They have great, health insurance benefits. They have their retirement plans. They get treated well. Like, they're in a company that, cares about them, so it's like, setting up all of those things is, like, now became more and more important. And, I think, like, this conversation of, what type of business are you in, and what's the vehicle that you're in? I think Hormozy talks about it. It's like, you could be an A-level entrepreneur, but if you're in, like, a C or D level vehicle, it's like you only have so much opportunity to be successful on that. Or, at best, it's like, maybe you are successful, but it's like super low, profit. And then it's like, well, what's the point of all this stress and headache? It's like, you could just go make more money working for someone, and in a lot of cases for a lot of people.
Yeah, dude, it's such a good point, man. And it's so hard to, as an entrepreneur, to sometimes the best path is to give up and move on to the next thing too. There's two phases of the business, right? So for the first 18 months of CrossNet, we didn't pay ourselves $1, and it was a grind. And there's so many times where I wish I was like, yo, should I go back to my job? Like, this sucks. But dude, you do have to stick it out. But there is also nothing worse than being stuck in a vehicle that is off the ground and running, but knowing that you're just limiting, and it's just opportunity cost as well. So gotta be measuring both of those things. So it's tough.
Yeah, no, 100%. So CrossNet, Founders Club, what else is, really kind of the focus then, over these next couple of years, whether it's things around Founders Club, obviously with CrossNet, getting that, and just total, like, household name, like a Franklin Wilson, like a basketball, it's like understanding that, anything else that, you're building on, on the side of what you're doing, or, with Founders Club, is there an ultimate, like, mission that you want to see that turn into? Obviously, hearing that you guys are growing that so rapidly, but, I'd love to hear more on that.
Yeah, I think for CrossNet, it's finding a potential long-term home for it that's inside of a larger cog in sporting goods. Just like in that industry, we've learned there's economies of scale really are the difference between a profitable business and an unprofitable sub $10-15 million. So it needs to be in a larger cog, and hopefully that will happen sooner than later. And then our team could just focus on putting out badass products and launching them. That's our real specialty, right? Like, as we've learned over time, like, I'm not the guy to be in the weeds moving the net profit from 12 to 14%. Like that doesn't get me up at night as it does other people. My skill is I'm a salesperson, I'm a marketer, and I love launching things. So if we can continue to launch badass products in a larger org, that would be amazing. And then on the club side, man, like that's my new passion, right? I'm working 40, 50, 60 hours a week on it, and I'm really inspired. The average American does not live in a major city, right? They live in these small towns, they have hopes and dreams. And I really want to prevent anybody who has an idea, like myself 7 years ago. The worst thing ever, man, would be to look at your child when you're 40 years old and be like, yo, dad never tried. Like your dad like had an idea, and everyone knows that person who has so many ideas that would have got them rich or should have got them rich, and they're just so pissed off about they never took the opportunity. I want to enable people to take the opportunity, at least even if it doesn't work out, at least they could say they tried, right? Like my wife has wanted to open up a Pilates studio for 5 years. We're finally doing it. So
Yeah,
I
I've been
know I'm
seeing
not
that
gonna
on
get,
Instagram. So
yeah, bro.
what's the plan with that? Like what are you guys trying to like is that like do you want to grow it into like a bunch of studios
Yeah,
and
dude,
like
it's gonna
what's
be a
the
bunch
plan?
of studios for sure. But yeah, to close that thought there, right? Like my wife wanted to do it for 5 years. We're finally doing it. I'm not gonna hear from her when she's 60, being like, "Oh, I never did the studio." Like we got the studio done. But no, we partnered up. Actually, I was very lucky to do this, but we partnered up with one of South Florida's most popular Pilates studios. So they're a reformer studio called Reforming Pilates, and we're now making the mat studio. So it's an infrared heated room. It's gonna be up to like 100 degrees. My wife is like the it girl here in Southern Florida for like mat Pilates. So she'll be like teaching her method, and then we'll have a bunch of other incredible instructors. About 20 to 24 girls in a room up in Aventura, Miami, and yeah, the goal is to get to four to six locations next year and keep scaling it out.
So is that on that business is the plan to eventually franchise that as well or is this like all privately?
Yeah, I think right now it's privately owned is the target. Our partners already have, I think they're on their seventh studio, so they have the expertise on that side. Where my wife's really good on the branding and also the actual class structure, and I kind of just bring a good business background. So the four of us together are a good team. We'll explore the franchising down the road, but I think for now, it's such a good profitable business once it's up. My goal is to reinvest the capital as soon as possible and just keep opening them up as long as we can prove out the demand. And so far, it seems like people are ready to spend money for it. So I'm excited.
Yeah, that's super cool. The reason I was asking is I actually I went to a mastermind called the Breakthrough Mastermind like a month and a half ago. Have you ever heard the name Baron Baptiste? You know, core
Oh
power
yeah,
yoga.
I know. I very much know Core Power Yoga. Yeah.
Yeah, so Baron was I can't remember if he's the sole founder or one of the co-founders, but he grew that to over 2,000 locations across the world. But I was at a mastermind with him and just like, hearing about what they're doing. Maybe that's someone I could make an intro for you guys to.
Bro, I would love that, man. I've learned became very good friends with Ann, who's the co-founder of Solid Core. So this is also an incredibly successful franchise. But yeah, dude, those are crazy businesses. I'd love an introduction there. They're great businesses, man. They're super profitable. They're fun. People are very loyal as long as you keep up the classes and make them fun and work. So yeah, I'm excited, and it feels like I'm going back to college, right? Like I'm learning a whole entire brand new business. So it's been fun.
That's super cool. So kind of, circling back here, for those that are listening in, growing and scaling their businesses, getting it to that million plus. We talked a little bit about hiring and some of the challenges there. We've talked a little bit about, some of the other, elements of scale and kind of like digging in and learning. Anything else that you just, typically like to share with people that are trying to, scale up their businesses, or any blind spots that, you just see as like a common thing when you're talking to entrepreneurs that you'd love to share?
Yeah, I would say one, if you haven't started, just get started. There's never going to be a perfect time, and you're always going to keep delaying it. So just get started. But number two is like less is more, right? CrossNet 2020 version, trying to spend money on a million different platforms, trying to grow different verticals, just trying to do so much that we overinflated the business, actually had our first loss. Just having straight focus. Spending, like, if you're a smaller business, like, just spend your money on Facebook. Like make Facebook work. Make Facebook work. Don't be trying a million other things, or at least find the one avenue that works and double down, triple down until you get to 5, 10, $20 million business. Everyone wants to be distracted with all these different things and different ways to grow the business. It's a really simple concept. Just focus on the one or two things. And every week we have our Monday meeting and we have our Friday meeting. The goal is to move 3 milestones forward, like the entire month. What are the big 3 rocks we want to move forward? And old 26-year-old Chris used to have 30 rocks he'd try to move forward every week, and it just
not a lot of movement because you're moving all of them like half an inch.
Exactly, bro. Moving half an inch and moving them all different directions. The garden looks all spread out. It's like find your one or two things and double, triple, like keep going down that route. That's when I found the most success. Has been doing that. So
yeah. So do you guys run off of like any like company operating system like an like Gino Wickman's EOS or Verney Harnish's like scaling up model or anything like that?
Yeah, we have the thing called an L10 that my business partner Aaron has implemented. I'm still learning it. It's actually been fun. So I'm loving the L10 model that kind of frames our Friday meetings. And yeah, it's been very cool to see everybody come with their numbers buttoned up every Friday, and it just pushes the business forward. It's great.
Yeah, positive focus, going through the scorecard, going through, the customer employee headlines, going through the rocks, going through the, the IDS, the whole thing.
Sometimes you used to think that was going to be some cheesy stuff and not how I wanted to run my fun little business, but it's important to keep, especially in this remote environment. How do we keep rapport up? How do we keep people moving forward? And how do we figure out what's holding people back from doing their job properly?
Yeah, no, I love it. So I want to circle back really fast as we're coming up here on time. But when you're looking at, because there is a lot of people on the focus of like marketing channels, like people here, like regardless of what type of business, it's like do Facebook ads, do Google ads, Google, owns YouTube. So it's like you do YouTube ads, but like, do cold email. That's the way. Or, it's like all of these different strategies, what do you share with people of like how, like when should they diversify their marketing channels? It's like obviously you have platform risk, algorithms change that could really hurt a company, but is there a certain, I know you mentioned 3 or 5 or plus million a year on a channel, but like do you have a certain metric you look at of like, hey, run Facebook ads until you're at $100,000 a month from that or $500,000 or whatever that is, and to kind of before you start spreading those platforms out?
No, I mean I see a lot of people smarter than myself even say just stay focused on one until you're even at 20 million, right? But like for me, I think it really all boils down to content creation and how can I take my content and spread it out on different platforms with low lift. So for me with like the Founders Club, right? Like I do a lot of video content, I do a lot of podcasts, and then I have a full team that kind of recycles it for my Twitter, for my Facebook, for my Instagram, for LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn's a massive driver for me as well. So even on the CrossNet business, LinkedIn is great because it gives me these B2B deals. So as much as I am focused on spending a lot of money on Facebook, I am making sure that I'm recycling the content on the other platforms and trying to level up there. But yeah, man, I wouldn't say there's a magic number. I think every business is different, right? Like Founders Club has spent $0 on paid marketing and has spent thousands on cold email. Like we have millions of lead lists. We're blasting cold emails from 400 different email accounts, and it's a whole different Wild West. So every business is different. If you're a traditional e-commerce business, I'd buckle down on Facebook all day long. And maybe one little secret that's worked well for us is buying newsletter spots in niche newsletters. So like for us, if we buy volleyballmagazine.com, right? Offer them a couple $100. It's a very people don't.
I'm making a note on that because I
bro,
gotta do that.
Like I think you said you run like a plant business, right?
Yeah,
so I'd be like finding a home and garden or some green thumb person. And like if any of these people, I'm thinking about all these florist TikTokers, right? Not that I'm searching that up, but I'm assuming there's a bunch of florist TikTokers. Some of them have to have a newsletter. They're all doing it either just out of passion or trying to make some money off of it. You offer them $100 for their super niche like subscriber base. That shit's gonna be profitable. So we do that a lot for the volleyball and the mom demo at CrossNet.
That's super interesting. Do you typically, when you're doing those newsletter lists, like kind of like do it like a few times a year where it's like, hey, we want to do that like 2 or 3 times a year?
Yeah, those are the best deals. I won't name drop the company, but there's one We pay $27,000 a year for. We get 5 emails. Every time they email it out, we make 50,000 bucks automatically. It's just autopilot money. So I try to stack as many of those. And now I'm doing that for the club, right? So for Founders Club, we're doing the same type of partnerships with like entrepreneur.com and all these kind of business hubs. So trying to put those same skill sets in for different businesses. But I think it works regardless of your industry. You just got to find the right kind of person.
Yeah, that makes sense. So why did you choose cold email to grow Founders Club versus like doing like Facebook ads or, other form of ads?
Oh, that's a good question. I was hiring for the marketing role, and it was like the perfect guy just applied, and I met him, and he kind of talked to me about how he owned thousands of founders' emails, and he wanted to like replicate Chris Meade and Aaron's feedback, my partner, and make 400 fake like Chris Meade emails. And I'm a very good copywriter. Like that's like one thing I'm very good at. So we came up with a bunch of really witty, good emails that struck like, yo, are you lonely? Like, do you not have somebody to connect with? Are you looking for like a local chapter in Miami to like make new friends and that know the business? And dude, we're getting like 40 applications a day now. It's crazy.
Wow.
So yeah, it's
how many emails are you guys sending a day?
He's sending from 400 different accounts. He's sending like 50 a day. So yeah, like over 2,000 emails.
And then they compound. Yeah. So
bro, yeah. And then so we have a setter now. So setter comes and picks up the phone, kind of gives them a little bit about the club, and then a formal interview if they pass the call. But yeah, the goal is to get the club to 1,000 members next year. That's like what our North Star that we're all marching for. It's very hard because as more people come in, you want to keep the quality because a few bad apples ruin the entire club. And of course, the business, like we wake up to make money. So to not take somebody's money sucks, but it's also at the detriment of the entire club, right?
It's the brand, it's like keeping the brand image good and the good people coming in that keep the brand
which is a crazy
strong.
thing, right? Like we're literally turning down money for the benefit of everybody else.
But you think about it, it's like, a high quality brand. It's like, like Gucci or Louis Vuitton. It's like, they're not going to be like, oh yeah, we'll let Walmart put our product in Walmart. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, dude, it's been fun. It's been very cool to explore these crazy random ways to make money in different ways. But yeah, if you're an e-com business, I'd probably stick with Facebook.
Yeah, love that. So as we're wrapping up here, Chris, where would you like people to find you? I know, you guys, Chris is an influencer on LinkedIn. So, we can follow. Where do you want people to follow you? And
yeah, I mean, Chris Meade pretty much everywhere. LinkedIn, Instagram's great. I got a newsletter called Cross Commerce that I'll send over Cody for the link, and then Founders Club Official. If you're a founder, our revenue requirement's at least $500,000 is kind of our minimum to get in. North America based. We have a massive chapter in Salt Lake, Austin, LA, Miami, New York, Toronto. Would love to chat with you and learn more. FoundersClubOfficial.com.
Love it. Chris, thank you so much for hanging out with us. And for everyone here, we'll have all of that information in the show notes. With that being said, we'll see everybody in the next episode.